Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic, where clearly we have evolved into our dark variants.
Yes, dark mode.
Yeah, this is to show the passage of time since we last recorded.
It's been, what, 3 weeks at least? Maybe more?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
Now to the folks at home, technically, because of how I've been posting things, they have, just the last 2 weeks had the 2 videos for the Invasion of Time. But we recorded those in the middle of December when we were both sick with COVID. But we have since recovered, and it is now, it's actually New Year's Day on the day that we're recording this.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, but we are good, we're all fine, and we are back to recording Doctor Who. So, last time around, we finished off the Invasion of Time. Do you remember what happened?
No.
Alright.
Not in the least.
The Doctor defeated the Vardans, and then the Sontarans showed up.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Sontarans. But they weren't, again, the very first time we saw the Sontarans, that guy was perfect. He was wonderful. Then we saw the Sontaran experiment, and it wasn't as good. And then this time they were, the makeup and the whole just not as good as the very first one.
Yeah. And then there was a whole chase through the TARDIS, and they kept going around to different locations within the TARDIS, and eventually the Doctor did something. I think he made a gun and killed the leader of the Sontarans. So, yeah.
And didn't, was it still Leela?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't she, throw a knife and hit him in the blowhole or something?
Oh, yeah.
The back of his neck?
Yeah, I guess they killed the other Sontarans that were there. And yeah, the day was really saved that time. And then Leela stayed behind on Gallifrey to stay with Andred and the hunters on Gallifrey. And so, yeah, the Doctor is left to his own devices. Now, something interesting, because when I loaded up this episode, the description, I don't often read the descriptions, but I just happened to glance at it, and the description of the first episode makes it seem like we missed something, because it just gets going like the Doctor and new companion. But so I looked up, this is the first episode. I also noticed this whole season is basically one story. I mean, it's multiple different things. We've got this story, and then we've got the next story and such. But I think from what I saw when I was looking up to make sure we didn't miss an episode, this should be one story arc throughout the whole season. Which I know that'll happen. I know one of the seasons of the 6th Doctor does that, but I didn't know that was going to happen here. So,
and this is season 6 or 7 of Tom Baker. I think this is 7, but don't quote me.
No, because when did he start? He started at 12, didn't he? I think. I'll go look at my thumbnails. Doctor Who. Yeah, this started at 12. So this is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. This is season 5 of Tom Baker.
Okay.
Of 7, I think. Don't quote me on that. So yeah. I mean, we're getting into it. We're definitely getting into it. But yeah, this season should be a complete story arc, which is that is a new thing, isn't it? We haven't really had that. So I'll be interested to see what that means, basically. So, and what kind of villains we'll get as an overarching story. But yeah, this is also the first episode of the season, so the full-length reaction is available for free. If you want to watch the parts where we're just sort of sitting here and not talking, then you can go do that. And because this is this first story here is a 4-parter, we're just going to watch all 4 episodes in a row, so you'll get the whole story. Just go down in the description or to the pinned comment. There'll be a link there, and basically what you got to do is, there's no footage from the actual show. What you got to do is sync up your copy of this episode of Doctor Who to our footage, basically. It's as easy as possible. we're currently watching this on Amazon Prime through BritBox. I'm sure other BritBoxes, actual BritBox probably works as well. Or the various other ways that you can find Doctor Who on the internet, but you didn't hear that from me. So you can do that and sync it all up and have a good time. And when you're done with that, I do encourage you to come back to this video for the discussion, though that never seems to be a problem for Doctor Who Classic. So, and also we have a new sonic screwdriver on here. And
Santa was very good to me, knowing that I love the historicals. I got the novelizations of the Aztecs and the Mask of the Mandragora, which I have not started yet because I'm almost finished with the Count of Monte Cristo, which I decided to read just because.
You just randomly looked at a bookshelf, saw the Count of Monte Cristo, and started reading it. Which, hey, that's as good an endorsement as any. Go read the Count of Monte Cristo.
It's a good book.
It's really, really, really good. So yeah, that's pretty much that. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Yeah. So, and if anybody is curious about the lore, he's done with his play by now.
Yes.
Because the last two episodes, Invasion of Time, you were probably still talking about that while we were both sick. So
we did 21 almost all sold out performances. This theater seats somewhere between 250 and 300 people. So good crowds, got good reactions. So I'm happy. May do it again next year.
Yeah. So, and I went to one of those as well. So, and it was it was good. You were good. Theater has a lot to be desired, but that's neither here nor there. You know me, I'm a very nitpicky person, so but so are you, clearly.
Yes.
So anywho, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this first story of this season-long arc of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go. I guess we'll go with UK subtitles. I wonder what the difference is between US and UK.
Spelling.
I guess.
Aluminum, aluminium. Center and center.
I was actually typing something out, and I just offhandedly wrote apologize. I guess I used S, and Google Docs was like, oh, this isn't the American way of spelling it. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about it. Oh yeah, you got a new K9. K9 Mark II.
It works, listen. Palm trees, sunshine all day, hot and...
Doctor.
Oh gosh.
Yes?
Your presence is required.
Oh, here we go again.
No.
You will come to no harm.
Just as you say.
Okay then.
It concerns the key to time. You know of the key to time?
Well, I've heard a few stories, legends, myths, that sort of thing.
It is no myth.
Sorry, sir.
The key to time is a perfect cube which maintains the equilibrium of time itself. These segments must be traced and returned to me before it is too late.
Oh, he's the
Before
villain.
the universe is...
What do they look like, these segments? How will I know them?
They are all disguised.
Yes, I thought they might be.
They contain the elemental force of the universe. They can be in any shape, form, or size.
Then how will I recognize
He
them?
looks a little like Paul
You will be
Newman.
given a locator
Thank you.
and an assistant.
An assistant? Oh, please, sir, on an assignment like this, I'd much rather work alone. In my experience, assistants mean trouble. I have to protect them and show them and teach them, and couldn't I just...
You will find your assistant waiting for you in the TARDIS.
Very well, sir, if you insist.
This is the writers convincing Tom Baker to have a co-star.
In order to maintain the universal balance, there is also a Black Guardian, and he also requires the key to time, but for a different purpose, an evil purpose. He must not get it. Beware.
That outfit is early 1800s,
I'm so sorry, K9. The holidays...
before the
Doctor?
Civil War,
That's the new assistant.
up to the 1840s. Hello.
My name is Romana Dvorakna-Lunda. I may be inexperienced, but I did graduate from the academy with a triple first.
I suppose you think we should be impressed by that, too.
Well, it's better than scraping through with 51% at the second attempt.
That information is confidential.
Shut on the edge. Slippery.
Not only slippery, it's perishing cold. Now, come on, let's get cracking.
That is Mongolian.
Now, quiet. Can we get caught up yet?
The Mongolians would have never had anything that sophisticated.
No. Maybe they're space Mongolians.
Probably also Kazakh, southern Russia. The crown jewels. Notice they had Christian crosses on them, though.
Why is it
A ranker.
always me? Why do I always get these jobs?
You're young. I'm too old to go down there.
Well, I want a chance to be old, too.
Do you think at your age I would have climbed down there without the ladder I'd have got? I love danger.
It's a Night Fury. Nice, though. That was a nice little reaction.
I'm not sulking.
That's ridiculous for somebody as old as you are.
I'm not old. What?
759?
756. That's not old. It's just mature.
You've lost count somewhere.
Well, I ought to know my own age.
Yes, but after the first few centuries, I expect things get a bit foggy, don't they?
How does anyone know how old he is?
Well, to put it very simply, Doctor, you're suffering from a massive compensation syndrome.
Is that the sort of rubbish they're pouring into your head at the academy?
Do you know, I might even use your case in my thesis when I
I'll
come back to
show you
Gallifrey.
whether I'm suffering from a massive compensation syndrome. And you're not going back to Gallifrey, not for a long time yet, I regret to say. Read out those coordinates again.
Good job, Doctor.
4940, vectors unchanged.
He's definitely going to miss Leela.
The craft never travels without its personal guard.
Please, these are primitive people, easily panicked. I mean, if you frighten them, they could turn very nasty. We don't want any unpleasantness at this stage, do we?
Well, let's get inside. Send the guard back, Sherlock.
Highness, royal guard, return to your ship. Dismiss.
Those are very European-style helmets
Oh, yeah.
for the soldiers.
Haha! Fresh.
It's bitter.
Can't stand the cold, stay out of the freezer. Which way? The secret of survival is always to expect the unexpected. Ow!
Oh, I think this is to stop animals wandering into the city at night. There's a cocking lever there just below the keystone.
Yes. I wondered if you noticed that. That's good. That's very good.
Ribos orbits its sun elliptically, so its climate is one of extremes. For the natives, the seasons are called ice time and sun time.
How long are the seasons?
Here in Oklahoma, it's currently ice time.
Unfortunately, of course, you'll not see the
Sometimes. At least it was last week.
If I bought it, Garen, it would not.
Right. Lower away.
Doctor!
Romana?
Doctor, I'm over here! Oh! Oh! Quickly! Oh! Oh! Doctor, do something!
Oh, good job, Romana.
That looks to be new font there, too.
Maybe. You know, if this was Leela, she'd just kill it. And then eat it.
And make clothing out of its skin.
Yeah. Did Romana not see it? Because she goes in there. I swear she looks at it and is like, oh, that's a beast. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so I'm trying to figure out, is there some point in Russian history, or especially Eastern Russia, again, out towards Mongolia and Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and some of those others, that this is trying to, take a story from it, but I'm not seeing it. I will say the young prince who was so excited about finding the Jethric, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Peter the Great, So again, that's around the same time period, the early 1800s. But again, I don't see any connection yet.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so the guy that met the prince, that was the same guy on the roof, right? Okay, so that's weird. So, okay, I guess he must have this plan to steal, whatever state jewel or something, and I'll probably just go ahead and assume they stole part of the key of time, but so he's stealing this, but he's also a part of this sort of organization that is on a planet with primitives who don't know anything of what's going on. It just seems so strange to do that, And I suppose there's the question of, is there actually this Jethric material, or did he forge that survey in order to get the prince to, hike up the price, maybe?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And in all of this, we also have, well, first off, the what I can immediately see as our overarching story is finding the key of time, and six different pieces, 6 different stories that works out. Yeah. That it definitely reminds me of, what was it, the Keys of Marinus, where they kept going to different parts of this planet, except now we're just stretching that over a much longer set of episodes. Yeah. So, and we also have the introduction of Romana, our, I guess, the first Time Lord companion, which is interesting. And to me, very interesting, because she has the ability to needle the Doctor. Yeah. It's kind of like you and me, or any other kind of millennial or Gen X or Gen Z or whatever they're calling them nowadays. Essentially taking on the boomer. Yeah, I mean it was. What are we at now? Because I mean I don't know the definite classic. Like there's the classification, like the years for a boomer, right? Yeah. So, but nobody can really agree on millennials. Like sometimes it goes to the year 2000, sometimes it's like 1995 or something. Yeah. But there is the millennial. I say it does end at the year 2000. 2000 to 2018 would be Gen Z, who I believe started being called the Zoomers. So, and I specifically put the end of that at 2000, so I'm not a part of these Zoomers. So I will be. I mean, and at least there with 2000, there's some wiggle room there. Because there's 1997 to 2000. That's sort of my window for that. And then because obviously if that only goes to 2018, there's whatever kids are coming up now. I don't know what they're called. Yeah. They're not important enough yet to be. We have to give it a few more years. But yeah, but it is an interesting dynamic between Romana and the Doctor, and I can see that, like, okay, he's gonna sort of soften up to her a little bit. She's going to chill out a little bit on messing with him, I'm sure. But I also wrote down basically just book smarts versus experience.
Yeah, I was going to say she's passed the whatever the Academy final exam was, top of her class. Yeah, and he barely managed to pass at all.
Yeah, he skidded by, but I mean honestly that sort of makes sense. That yes, with this whole final exam, I'm sure it's about how to be the perfect Time Lord. Yeah. And he just isn't. Yeah. Because he's always been a sort of renegade among the Time Lords. Even just going back to before we even really knew what Time Lords were. Just him, even as an old First Doctor stealing the TARDIS, So there's definitely that, but he also has way more experience than her. She's fresh out of the Academy, and he's 756 years old. So, which... It's an interesting thing that how... I understand the Doctor either lying about his age or just not remembering at this point. I'm curious how the Time Lords figure out how old he is because of how much he jumps around. The only thing I can think is maybe the TARDIS knows, just because the TARDIS is the only thing that's always with him. Yeah. So, Yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely an interesting pairing to start off with. Yeah. So, and I did like that the scene of like, oh, you're going to need an assistant for this, and he's arguing that he doesn't want one, and it really does feel like they wrote that in there because Tom Baker, would be like, no, I can, the one-man show, I've got a little robot dog, it'll be fine, and the writers were like, no, we can't do that.
You got to put in the good-looking girl to attract a certain segment of the audience.
Yeah, and that dress as well. I mean, I think that's the point of Leela's main outfit, and now this sort of this white dress that Romana has. So, it is kind of funny though that I know the Doctor does have a lot of layers. He has a couple shirts and his jacket and his scarf. I love that he just doesn't feel cold though. It's just nothing. So yeah.
And I think I originally called it Ribos, then the Doctor called it Ribos, and I think somebody else called it Ribos.
Yeah.
So
the ribeye steak.
It's interesting that you know the term ribeye steak, although you've never seen or eaten a ribeye steak.
Well, I'm a man of very specific knowledge.
Robert Holmes.
You didn't notice that. Well.
Something wrong, sir?
Strange. Of course, they might not chop our hands off. They might just feed us to the Schubenzau.
Someone's here.
They couldn't hear that through the open grate there?
Nope.
Now, the Russian symbol was a double-headed eagle. That looks like a duck.
No.
Where are you from?
I am only in a modest way of business myself, but I have a colleague who is carrying a very substantial sum. In excess of 1 million gold opex.
1 million?
More than 1 million.
Opex is short for kopecks, which was a Russian denomination of money.
So much more.
You say your father found this piece of scringe stone?
Yes, sir. In his poor old frozen pocket, wrapped up in this here bit of parchment.
Looks like a rough map.
That's what I reckon, sir. Maybe the next sun time I might go looking for that old scringe stone mine myself.
Well, I do hope you enjoy your stay in Shah.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, I'm with you.
Never mind, they're not dressed like anybody else.
Well.
You look surprised, Garen. But as you see, you were expected. You and your accomplices. No one makes a fool of the Graf Vindicay and lives. Shalak,
Heinz.
execute them.
Bogus.
Guards, take aim. Prepare to fire.
Alrighty. That's part 2.
Alright, so it's basically a big scam, but
Yeah.
we're still no closer to the key of time.
Yeah.
And nobody, so far in these 2 episodes, seems to know anything about the key.
Yeah. So I would assume either one of the crowns is the piece of the key of time, or it's the Jethric itself. Because it can be disguised as anything. So yeah, and now, okay. So I'm trying to figure out, everything out of, alright, so there's the ceremonial guys that light the things and feed the beast. Are they also the primitives on this planet? Or do they know... Because they do say, oh yeah, these are some friends from the north, not from space. So...
I don't think they're part of the primitives.
Yeah.
I think they're part of whatever this, castle retinue is.
Yeah, so...
but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that. The main guy, Garen, the con man, he's definitely not... I thought he was a part of this world, but he's not. And I guess he's not really... he's technically not trying to steal anything. Like, he's not trying to steal the crowns. He's just using that in order to take the 1 million.
Yeah, the deposit.
Yeah.
This is kind of a Harry Mudd type character.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, again, it's a lot of fun, but at this point, we have not yet seen any real connection to the Key of Time.
Yeah. So, if there was something like they figured out that the Jethric was the Key of Time, but they were still trying to get it and also deal with all this stuff, and now they're about to be shot. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Sorry for the yawning, but we were up for New Year's Eve last night, way past my bedtime. I'm old.
How dare you touch me! God!
Highness!
Let go! Love some help. Cover your ears.
Master?
Stymied by a threshold.
Have you ever looked up at the sky at night? They are not ice crystals. I believe they are suns, just like our own sun. And perhaps each sun has other worlds of its own, just as Ribos is a world. What do you say to that?
It's an interesting theory.
What? A broad-minded man. Perhaps in the north, they are a different people after all. You see, my friend, I have taken measurements of those little lights.
He's Copernicus.
And I can prove. You believe it too?
I know it for a fact. You see, I come from one of those other worlds.
Oh, you?
I thought I should tell you because one day, even here, in the future, men will turn to each other and say, Binro was right.
Nice teeth. Must be the national health.
So I can't
It's a
promise you this
British health policy joke.
It's just a scratch.
There's only one chance for you now, my friend. We must take refuge in the catacombs. Come, follow me.
This is all over the place.
No,
Copernicus and Galileo were 13th and 14th century, I guess. Maybe 15th. The catacombs go all the way back to Rome.
You've gone deeper than this.
Now we have him. He cannot escape, and no one will ever know how he tried to trick the Graf in decay.
I did suddenly realize in the last 5 minutes, I was like, there's another episode, isn't there?
Makes you wonder if his name is short for Vindicator.
Maybe. Alright, so definitely the other, I guess, guards or the keepers of the relics are part of this primitive planet. Basically, the primitives are just Russians that haven't gone to space yet. So, and they have the seer, who, to the seer's credit, she did see. So, but yeah, and did one of us call that the Jethric would be the piece of the Key of Time?
Possibly.
Yeah. I already can't remember. We're clearly both tired. We probably should have done this tomorrow, but it's alright. So,
I'm starting rehearsals for my new show tomorrow night.
good job. Good job.
You've got an unconscious death wish.
Don't bicker. No bickering.
Never bicker.
No, we should be looking for my invaluable young friend and stuff.
Who's carrying a valuable piece of Jethric?
What is property at such a time?
What do we do now?
Well, you can start by getting out of the friggin' hole.
That way up. No, don't explain, don't explain. Look after those two.
This does seem like a much better model
You had the knowledge.
of K9.
You're worried about him, aren't you, my friend?
Suppose he's the Black Guardian.
See, we've worked together for a long time.
Bones, the bones, the bones, the bones are alive! The one you seek is here!
This is Way Highness, I'll show you.
Stay!
Hold stop! Hold stop!
Get here, you fool, you fool!
Well, he's not the Black Guardian.
Nope.
Right. I'll avenge you, Shalek.
I'll bombard this stinking planet till it's nothing but a smoking hole in space.
Like the Sons of Warfan.
There is no greater honor, soldier, than to surrender your life in the service of the Graf Binder K. Shalek! Shalek! To me! To me! Charge! Onwards! Onwards! What shall I take first? Onwards! Onwards!
Oh. I thought, yeah, just pop it onto him.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? I'm so reluctant to part with it. Oh, tell me. Oh, well, there you are, Doctor. Thank you very much. Goodbye, Garen. Oh, goodbye, Doctor. What's your name? Unstuff. Goodbye, Unstuff. Hi, Doctor.
Mistress. Come along, K9.
He obviously switched it out again.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Well, thank goodness he's gone. I was afraid he'd notice.
Notice what?
We haven't lost the Jethric. I switched it for a piece of ordinary stone. Yeah, I did. Look. Switched it back again. Oh, Unstop! Is there nobody you can trust these days?
The first segment. Simple, wasn't it? Only 5 more to go.
Alrighty.
Well, for a Robert Holmes, I mean, although the writing was good, the characters are good, it was really kind of very slow paced.
Yeah.
And again, we're waiting for the Black Guardian to show up. There's no indication he was there at any point.
No.
You got this whole Russian thing going on, which apparently has nothing to do with anything other than the BBC had costumes laying around from, Dr. Zhivago, or I guess Zhivago's too late. What was the name? Oh, Taras Bulba or something like that, the Cossacks. So, again, interesting story. It's the nice beginning to the arc, but so many things that we're anticipating because we were told they were going to be there, and they're not there.
Yeah. I imagine, I guess they're just trying to ease us into it a little bit, and then probably maybe in the next episode we'll start getting hints of the Black Guardian and stuff. I almost wonder if the Black Guardian's just going to be the Master, because I mean, he dresses the part, so. And I could also sort of see it being. Because when was the last time we saw the Master?
The assassination? Deadly Assassin, maybe?
I guess. Yeah.
Wasn't that the GUI Master?
Yeah, that was about 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
So. Because, yeah, I was trying to think, like, he hasn't healed yet or anything. So, it would make sense if a sort of key of time could sort of fix his body, but yeah, don't know, but probably we'll get more hints of that. I almost wonder if, because I mean, at what point did they make the decision to do this, season-long arc? And I would almost wonder if maybe with this episode, they started like this episode might have been 75% done. Then they decided that, so they just go in, fix some things, add some extra lines before they start filming. Because otherwise, this is just sort of a normal episode. It's just that they end up with the Jethric at the end. So, but yeah, we have the search for the key of time, which honestly, that piece at the end, it was a large piece, which I wasn't expecting, and just sort of the shape of it. It's like, okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to put this all together. It's gonna be like Yu-Gi-Oh! You got to figure out how to put the Millennium Puzzle together and then unlock the Pharaoh. It's great. It gets people interested in Egyptian history and also card games.
Or not.
I think it does. I think there's an argument to be made about it. So, anywho. But yeah, so we have the White Guardian, who... See, it's also a strange thing right off of the invasion of time that, the Doctor leaves Gallifrey. I guess there could have been some adventures or something, like he's been off for a little while and then he came back. But it seems like the White Guardian is a Time Lord. I would say, or he has to be connected to the Time Lords.
He's connected to I don't think he is a Time Lord. I think he's outside of the Time Lords.
I guess.
But again, we may find that out over the next, 24 episodes.
Honestly, he could be the Black Guardian, for all we know. So, because, honestly, I kind of mentioned that, too, when he said, yes, and I need you to get all the pieces of the Key of Time to me. And it's like, I don't know who you are. I don't trust you, So I can see that being some sort of a twist, but he has to have some connection to the Time Lords because he knows Romana and can bring her in and forces the Doctor to have an assistant. So yeah. So that's strange. And so far, Romana is a decent companion. She hasn't left a lot of impact in her first story that Sarah Jane or Leela did for the Doctor, but she's all right.
No, we say this all the time. You know who would have made better companions? Garen and what was the other guy's? Umlaut.
Yeah.
Ortloff.
Ustaf? Something like that.
You can...
Is there cast? Unstaff. Yeah. Yeah, so Unstaff.
Now, the two of them would obviously be great companions for the Doctor because they are the opposite of Romana. She's all, except for the actual costume, she's all buttoned up and by the book, I'm a graduate of the university or the academy, and they're like, hey, it's whatever, we'll do what we need to do.
Yeah.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Even if they just took Garen and left Umlaut there, unstuffed.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's a bit of an odd name, so. But yeah, so this whole thing was on Ribos, or Ribos, or Ribos. It just kind of depends on who you ask. But yeah, so this whole... Okay, so this does beg the question, though. Okay, so the natives there, alright, that's just how they dress in the, was it the ice time or whatever? That's just how they dress. It just happens, it looks very Russian because, that's what they also have in the studio. To be fair, it's the exact same as, how many episodes of Star Trek, the original series, is like, oh, we found a planet that's just like Earth. Thank God we can reuse, sets and costumes from next door.
Yeah.
So, it's a planet. It's evolved exactly like Earth all the way to Nazi Germany. Like, what?
And again, as much as I admire the costumes because they were really, really nice, and we really did evoke a certain menace.
Yeah.
To historians, and again, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, however old I would have been by this time, I probably wouldn't have noticed that. But it's like when I told you when I did my production of Cyrano a couple of months ago. Cyrano is set in the 1640s. The costumes, which I wanted to be non-specific time period, were very specific. They were the French Revolution of the 1820s. Now, again, most of the audience probably never noticed that, but I sat there looking at the costumes going, as beautiful as these costumes are, they're totally wrong. Because I was worried that somebody in the audience was going to say, so what was your mindset in setting it during the Second French Revolution? Were you trying to make a statement about the Les Mis? And it's like, no, my costumer got me the wrong costumes. So I look at this and I just want to go, did the costumer just say, we got some old Russian costumes left over from some production the BBC obviously was involved in, and they just said, fine, that's great. But again, to certain people, you look at that and go, I'm looking for the Russian connection there.
Yeah, I think what would have been better would have been something closer to Peladon, where it's like, they have such grand costumes in Peladon, but they're also still alien.
Yeah, non-specific.
Yeah. And I think the other problem with this is that for a while I couldn't tell who were the natives and who weren't.
Yeah.
So, because what was the main guy? Garen. Garen sort of has a similar thing. His is a bit more just sort of a bunch of animal hides, and so was Unstaff. But then the Graf sort of has that same thing. Like the biggest distinction was the bucket heads. That was pretty much it. So yeah, it was hard to tell pretty much all of them apart. And then there's also the question, and maybe this is just because I'm not up to date on my Russian history. Did the Russians have seers that often?
Well,
like that?
I'm sure they did, depending on the time period. Literally, the one thing that seemed to be missing there, and I realized this would have been 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century, is a Rasputin character.
Yeah.
The all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing type of, man who's in control. But, yes, the Russians at this time were very superstitious. I'm trying to remember, they had a group called, I think it was called the Oprichniki, who were the secret police. But the legends of the secret police were like, they always came at night, and their horses all had blazing red eyes, and this, that, and the other thing. So yes, like a lot of Europe during this time period, very, very superstitious. So that kind of all fit in. So
yeah. It's also just sort of like a, kind of going back to Star Trek. Sometimes Star Trek, if they would want to portray a certain, culture or something, you take that, or a certain, political issue or something, you take that and you put it into space, but it's completely different. So, when Star Trek wanted to do Russians, they made Klingons. And then they remade Klingons when they were like, okay, we can't do Russians anymore. So there was that. But this, again, it's just, they just are Russians who haven't discovered space yet.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, they've got advanced weaponry, but they've got, 15th century, 16th century clothing.
Yeah. And and you can just get by as an alien if you just say you're from the north.
The north. Lots of places have an up north.
Yeah, so.
Wasn't that what Eccleston said? Lots of planets have a north.
Yeah. So. But yeah, it's also, and I feel like we just couldn't stop and focus on one thing, because it's like, there's the Russians, there's Graf, there's Garen, and then you also throw in Binro the Heretic, which is an interesting idea and an interesting character, and it's a good moment when he gives all his theories, and Unstaff is like, no, you're completely right, and I'm from the stars and everything. But that's only a very minor part. Also, on top of all of this, we're trying to get this magical part of a key of time, and also introducing a new companion. It's like it was a little too many things to throw into 4 episodes.
And a weird little thing is that it turns out that Garen is actually from Earth. And they actually talk about his accent, which I thought, I love the accent. I wish I could do that. I'd have to study it. But the fact that he said, I used to be basically a grifter on Earth, and then I got pinched, got caught for it, and so I decided to go off-world and ended up, in a galaxy far, far away, or, further away in our own galaxy. But again, it was just, like you said, there's so much stuff going on here, and, trying to put it out all on a spreadsheet, I think you would go crazy trying to follow all the various threads.
Yeah, it's like each of these are interesting enough to take an episode or so, but then if you put them all together, it's like, well, they don't all fully mix together. So, and then so Garen is a con man who at least he has some principles, and he would not sell the Sydney Opera House. But then after that, he decided to head off into space, and now he's selling planets. And the current thing, although this could just be, I guess it's probably just his normal scam, is tricking people into thinking there's Jethric on a certain planet.
Yeah. So,
and we also have Graft, who was the emperor of some empire. I don't remember what it was called.
I wanted to say the Kyrenian or something.
Yeah.
Again, to the discerning ear, sounded very much like Kirill, because Cyrillic, or Cyrillic as some people pronounce it, was the alphabet of the Russian Empire at this time period.
Yeah. So he was the emperor and left his brother in charge, but when he came back, they kicked him out.
Yeah.
And so now he's trying to get the Jethric in order to buy an army and everything.
Yeah.
So,
and again, that dozens of people from the Roman Empire on up until the 15th, 16th, 17th century, who had been leaders of their country and left for a war and got kicked out. So, I mean, it's all good. It's just there's so much of it. And again, I'm not faulting Robert Holmes for that, because he obviously has set the tone for this entire seasonal arc. But either he or somebody, because of the choices that they made in costuming and things like that, and sets, that we look at it and it's just almost a sensory overload.
Yeah. And I think, again, just the fact that the costumes are too similar to each other. Yeah. So you have to really distinguish who's who. So,
and I will say this. For obviously something that's going to go much longer than almost anything other than, the Chase and the Daleks Master Plan, this is certainly better than the Chase.
Yeah. So, the Chase was 6 episodes. Daleks Master Plan was 12, but the middle one was that ridiculous Christmas episode.
Yeah. And isn't that the one that's started out to be the rise of the Nazis and then just completely went sideways?
Yeah, that's the one where Terry Nation started it and then just gave up and they passed it to somebody else. So, but no, it's a work of art. And then the other super long one was what was the last Troughton one? What was that called? The War Games.
War Games, which was brilliant.
I kept thinking War Machines, but that wasn't right.
No.
But yeah,
that was a Hartnell. The War Machines, the bad chopping.
Right, that was one of his last ones. But the War Games was Troughton's last one, and that was 10 episodes long. And this will be the whole season for this arc. But at the very least, despite an overarching plot, is going to be separate stories still, which is something. Again, I think will pop up at least one more time with classic Doctor Who, and then after that, they won't try that again until Jodie Whittaker's 3rd season was all one story with varying degrees of success. Some of those episodes were good. Some of those episodes that really was sensory overload.
Was the Demons of Punjab in that season?
Was that 2nd season? No, that was her 1st season. Okay. So, but yeah, and I was trying to think if there were Russians in that in that 3rd season, but no, I think there were Santarans instead of Russians. So, anywho, it doesn't matter. Other stuff, not a lot. I didn't write down a ton of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of just... I don't know. It was like there were a lot of down moments, but there were still things being said. So it's a weird, like, things were happening, and I wrote down none of it, but it wasn't important enough to write down, so I don't know what to do about that. I
hear something even weird. Maybe it's because I'm so tired. You've stopped it here on the Doctor Who Tom Baker thing, and we talked about it before. In the kaleidoscope, you can see things right behind the H and O and the E and the R.
Yeah, I see
going
that.
all the way down to the bottom. It's like a kaleidoscopic Bela Lugosi as Dracula.
Yeah, I can see that.
With the cape and everything.
Yeah, because I see the hair, the forehead, the eyebrows, the eyes. It gets obscured a little by the writing. You get the jacket, you get a bit of, or the cape, and you get a bit of the dress in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
We are really tired.
We are. How long do you think we've been talking?
Way too long.
20 minutes or so?
Yeah.
This is good enough. But yeah, it's still an interesting start. Interesting start to the season and the season arc. And I think one of the biggest things is the fact that it's like, all right, here's Romana, and she's all right. It's like, all right, well, especially just with Leela's first episode, and that was the one where it was like the Doctor was a god, but he wasn't the god, and there was the mountain with him and stuff. So, all of that making such a big wave, and Leela making such a big wave, and then you get Romana, and it's like, there's some good back and forth between her and the Doctor. I will say, because I've mentioned this before, sometimes when the Doctor is, I feel, a little too angry with his companion, I will say, this is justified here. She's bugging him, but it's also good.
Yeah.
It's a good back and forth between the two of them. So that's interesting, and it does look like they got a better model of K9. Like, he's not as noisy this time. Like, I always noticed that when he would, like, go around, and just the audio of it was just so loud with him going through. So I imagine they must have made a new model between seasons to make him a little quieter.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I mean, he looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
And he acts exactly the same. So I'm not sure what else the difference is between Mark 1 and Mark 2. So, but yeah, that is pretty much it. And the next episode is the Pirate Planet. All right, so
okay.
expect a crossover with Pirates of the Caribbean, just a couple years early.
It makes you wonder, though. Disney World opened in the early 70s, 72, 73, I think. And I think Pirates of the Caribbean was one of their actual attractions there at the park. So
yeah, I mean, that is the thing, is that the movie is based on the ride.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not expecting Johnny Depp to show up. That'd be hilarious, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll be like one of the older actors from Pirates. Like, I don't know. Could Mr. Gibbs show up in Doctor Who? That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
when you said older actors, I was thinking Errol Flynn, John Barrymore, some of the, like from the 30s and 40s who actually did those pirate movies, Captain Blood and Pirates of Tortuga and that sort of whatever those silly films were.
Yeah, you went the opposite way of time. So I went past the 70s. You went before the 70s. Yeah. So.
Anyway.
But either way, it'll be interesting to not see any of those actors show up. But yeah, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time when we have more caffeine. See you guys then. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.